members of the panel and attendant. Thanks to ICMCI for inviting me to make this presentation. I looked at the list of presentations that were planned, and we had some initial discussion. And I thought to myself that one of the things that usually happens in those scenarios is we usually speak about situations that involve perhaps larger firms, larger clients, or persons in larger markets. And persons in my situation may not think it is as relevant. So I thought that I should speak more about persons in constrained situations, but in relation to what the other presenters have already addressed. Perhaps I should just briefly introduce myself. My name, as you see, is Stephen Louis. I am an ICT and management consultant. I've been working in the field for about 35 years. My work has primarily been in the Caribbean region, although some of it has been outside. Presently, I focus on the areas of strategic IT, including enterprise architecture, but I also do some technical work in areas such as software development, also project management, and so forth. In my market, because the market is small, you tend to have to cover a wider range of skills. So in this, what do I mean by constrained circumstances? Well, as I mentioned, the set of circumstances where you may have small markets or limited opportunities. You may have a practice where you're a single consultant, or you may only have a few consultants, or you network with other associates. Your turnover may be relatively low on account of having a small market. And there may be other constraints that you face. There may be limited support for consultants in your market. It may be difficult to access or expensive to get access to technology. It may be difficult to get access to training, development opportunities, and so on. So there are a number of things that may constrain consultants in those environments. And persons in those environments may ask themselves, are these opportunities for me? Now, before I go further, I felt for the benefit of those of you who are not from the Caribbean and not familiar with the Caribbean, I should just make a few points about the Caribbean. This is a map of the Caribbean region. If there are any colleagues on here from Suriname, I'd have to apologize because Suriname is part of the Caribbean, but it's not on this map. It's on the mainland of South America, but it's not on this map. I'm from St. Lucia, which is over here. Now, if you're not from the Caribbean, you look at this map, you'll see that we are several small islands fairly close together. And we do have the benefit of proximity. We do have similar histories and other socioeconomic characteristics. But despite this, moving and working across the region for consultants can be very complicated logistically and can be very expensive. And so many of our consultants face the constraints identified earlier. They're not always able to take a benefit from the larger market that would be obtained and confined to their individual locations. So the question then is, if the consultants operate in more constrained environments, can they benefit from the type of technology, innovation, and digital transformation that our colleagues have been discussing here today? And the simple answer is yes. However, this has to be through approaches that are slightly different, that take cognizance of their situation. So, for example, I just spoke about digital transformation. I like to think of, in the context of the Caribbean, I like to think of digital intensification, in that it may not be transformation in the true sense of transforming the nature of your operations or transforming the services that you deliver through ICT, but it may be intensifying the use of ICT to improve the delivery of those services. Also, one of the things I want to talk about is moving towards a more location-agnostic type of operation. So what has been our own experience of my firm, BusinessTech Research Inc? Well, we executed our first all remote assignment in the period between 2010 and 2011. And by all remote, I mean that we had no physical contact with the client at any point in initiating this assignment or in delivering the assignment. The specific situation that led to this was we had a referral, which was a good thing. So there was some trust, and I noticed my colleagues spoke about the importance of trust. There was some trust because of this referral, but the cost and the logistics of travel would have made our services uncompetitive for the client if they had to cover our costs, and it would have been unprofitable for us if we were to absorb that cost. The assignment included a customization of a particular software package, deploying it and to the client's servers and testing it, conducting user training, and providing subsequent support. Around that time, 2010, there were tools available, but they did not quite have the same level of capability as today. And from what I recall, what we would have used then would be Skype for online communication and LogMeIn for remote control. However, that led to us developing, I would say, a greater confidence in remote delivery. And in fact, I would say for assignments that we have delivered outside of our home territory, since then, or since 2015, it has been primarily through remote delivery. Part of the reason is because I mentioned the high cost of logistics and moving around. Clients are not always willing to meet those costs. Now, in this model of delivery, although that term is usually used to refer to businesses that allow different types of working for their employees, it may not typically apply in the case of consulting, but we can think of it in that sense, in that as a consultant, you want to be able to deliver your services to whoever requires it, wherever they require it. Now, that is the client engagement part, but the real work is actually behind the scenes in your internal operations and the adjustments that you need to make in your internal operations to be able to accommodate this type of delivery. Now, the opportunity that has arisen, the challenge I mentioned before is that you need to deliver the service remotely, and you need to change your internal operations to facilitate that. However, there is a great opportunity in that COVID has changed the attitudes of clients to remote engagements. There was, some years ago, although we use remote delivery for our overseas clients, our local clients were not particularly receptive to it. They saw no reason why we couldn't jump in the vehicle and drive down to have a meeting. That has changed. Now, people assume that the meeting is going to be remote unless said otherwise. So clients have become more receptive. Remote engagements can offer advantages for both the clients and the consultants. And I think it is important for us as consultants to always emphasize to the client why it is a benefit to them to be able to deliver a service remotely. And I think I'm sure that that's something that Chris will be able to speak to. There are some things that you can do in a remote meeting in terms of the way you do the sharing, in terms of the way you do the presentation, that are actually not as easy in a face-to-face meeting. And it's important to emphasize that to the clients. There are some things to highlight if we try to move towards this location-agnostic way of working, which I believe is where the greatest advantage is for the smaller consultants. It does require a range of ICT tools. I'll speak to that briefly in a while. The selection and use of the tools need to be prioritized based on need, opportunity, and resources available. And the reason I want to emphasize that point is, again, the smaller and the more constrained consultants are not usually able to make the investment in platforms that the larger firms are able to make. A larger firm may be able to provide an entire platform to its consultants that handle all aspects of the consulting process. Larger firms, smaller firms are not able to do that, or individual consultants. Therefore, we need to prioritize what tools we invest in at a given time. It's also important to have access to your knowledge and information resources at all times. In fact, I would say that this, as I'll show, is one of the highest priorities. How are you going to organize your information to ensure that it's always available to you, regardless of your location? So this diagram here gives an example of some of the types of tools that a consultant may require in that scenario and the prioritization of those tools. Now, this prioritization is not meant to be a global prioritization. It's more prioritization that applies to us. So the tools to support the customer engagement and communications, and that includes many of the platforms that we are all familiar with, like Zoom, these are a top priority. They're essential in that you cannot deliver the service without that. The tools for knowledge and information management are also critical. For those of us involved in delivering technical services, those tools are also critical. We can't deliver our services without that. And tools for managing the work that you do, the project management and execution, are also critical. The tools for administering your firm and for managing your human capital are also important. They may not be as critical, but certainly they are also important. And then, of course, there are tools for your continuous learning and professional development, including online learning, marketing, promotion, and visibility, including, for example, social media, websites, and so on. Now, as I mentioned, in my particular situation, I have ranked these as a lower priority, but this may be different for the firms. But the purpose of that is to make the point that a consultant with limited resources needs to decide what tools, how you're going to prioritize your investment in the various ICT tools that is going to lead you to this objective. So I would say for a consultant who may be, again, facing constraints, as you consider the ICT solutions and approaches that are being proposed in terms of ICT enterprise architecture, design your enterprise architecture, in terms of digital transformation, in terms of using ICT-based methods to deliver your training and services. There are 4 questions I would say that you would consider in deciding what to do and how to prioritize. How can that technology allow me to access markets and opportunities that may not have been available otherwise? How can it help me to perform better quality work? Better quality in terms of the client's expectations, work that will better meet the client's expectations. How can it allow me to perform work more productively? So in other words, less effort to deliver. And I think importantly, how can it allow me to work in a more rewarding way, financially and otherwise? Otherwise is quite important in that regard. Again, individual consultants are constantly working because there's a greater burden on you personally to deliver the service. And you want technology that helps alleviate that burden, that helps you have a good quality of life. So you don't want it to tie you to a particular task or a particular location. So you want to ensure that technology helps you have a more rewarding experience, consulting experience. So the main messages, I would say, the ability to work remotely has long been a necessity before COVID-related restrictions, as I showed in my situation. In a location-agnostic strategy, remote service delivery is critical, but it's only the tip of the iceberg. There are tools needed to support key processes, and the knowledge creation management is one of them. And digital transformation and intensification offers opportunities for consultants, even if the circumstances are constrained. So I would encourage all consultants to embrace this, even where they think that what is being suggested may be out of their reach. So thank you. This is my presentation, and I would be happy to engage in the discussion and answer any questions that may arise.